Hello. Welcome to the Get Invested podcast. We are excited that this is our third episode. I am Jordan, and that's my co-host Matthias there on the other screen. And we are excited to be here with you. We had a little bit of feedback from friends and family when we were doing this that suggested that we should introduce ourselves a little bit further. We kind of just jump right into the nitty-gritty of finance, or not finance, but real estate investment offering sheets and the kinds of things that we're pumped to talk about, and hopefully you're pumped to listen to. But sometimes you need to know the messenger as well. So we figured the best way to do that, while also bringing some content that is part of this podcast, is to talk about something that applies to everyone, and that is credit. What it is, how it works, what it means, right? How it develops as you move along in your life, what kinds of things it allows you to do, disallows you to do. Just a general conversation that will allow us to also talk about ourselves and our journey, including the fact that we've known each other since I was 3 and Matthias was 2. So we're going to talk about how that credit journey occurred with us, happened, and bring probably hopefully some personal insights into the bigger topic. Matthias, you got anything to say before we jump in?
No, we've spent the last few minutes compiling old pictures that some of us have seen and some of us have not seen of us in our childhood, and I'm looking forward to see what we got here as we talk about credit scores punctuated with hilarious old pictures.
Yes, that is true. Now, as a testament to how long we've known each other, I actually have pictures that only exist in hard copy. Actual film, no, not digital. These don't exist in the internet sphere. They're only here. So we're excited to show those and laugh at ourselves while we talk about credit. So, guys, where do you want to begin? Where we're jumping in?
Yeah, so basically, credit score I think is probably a good place to start because that'll lead to a few more conversations. We'll talk about like what makes up your credit score, and then we can get into how that impacts your life going forward. So these are the actual, you have it pulled up here. These are the actual credit scores. Obviously, you start off in the 300s, working all the way up to 850 as kind of the perfect score, if you will. Basically, you got to be old and relatively rich to get the 800, 850. Because as we'll talk about in a minute, one of the biggest factors is age, and age of your oldest account that goes into your credit score. But a lot of people, in that 600 to 750 range, that's pretty common for most people, I'd say. And in a minute, like we said, we'll talk about what each of those means and how big of a difference that can make in something like your mortgage payment. If you have a 650 versus a 750 credit score. But these are the ranges, and in kind of how many Americans are spread out to each of these. So 67% of Americans have a good or better. So starting at that 670, which is good. Obviously, we'd like everybody to do better than that. But there's, you come in and out of all these ranges as over the course of a lifetime. Obviously, as you're younger, you make silly decisions sometimes, and that can cause you to jump down to that poor, or you start off with fair credit anyway, I believe, at the very beginning. But yeah, so those are the kind of the scoring ranges, and now we can talk about. I don't know. What questions do you have? If
So
anything,
I think,
on those?
yeah, I think, for a lot of people, I think even people who have good credit and are financially responsible because they just know things to do and things not to do. I don't know if we as a society, even the 67% of us that are good or above, actually understand what goes into this, how these numbers are even created, why is it goes up and goes down. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about just what it is that financial institutions are looking at.
Yeah, so I actually looked it up on Experian, one of the credit rating bureaus, and they actually have the breakdown of their percentages for credit scores. So payment history accounts for 35% of your score. Basically, that's just, hey, does this person pay their credit cards, credit bills, any debt on time, and payment history. So payments that are 30 days to 60 days late. There's different how bad the scores can be if you get dinged by missing a payment. By depending on how long it is, and if it gets sent to collections, that's a different thing. Depending on the type of account it is, but basically, payment history makes up 35%. Then amounts owed is another 30%, and that a big ratio or a big factor in that score is the amount of credit that you're using or your credit utilization ratio. Sorry. So basically, that's let's say if you in the instance of credit card, let's say you have a $10,000 limit on your credit card. If you have a balance of $2,000, you've used 20% of your credit, and the utilization ratio that they recommend is 30% or lower is considered good. So depending on how much you could be taking, if you use less of it at any given time or have used less of it at any given time, that allows you to have a better score. And that, again, that whole section is 30% of your score. Next is length of credit history, 15%. And that's basically how old is your oldest, and then how old is your youngest, and then kind of the average against all the rest of those. So all those kind of, they basically have a formula where they put that together. But that's a big factor. It's just strictly how old are you, and how old is the oldest account.
So like just longevity is a big chunk of it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, they're good.
Yeah. I guess what you're saying is that these guys right here probably not going to be able to get a good credit score. Here we are in a church group called Patch the Pirate.
Yeah.
I don't even know how old we are in this picture. I think like 6 and 7 probably.
I think we're even younger than that, to be honest with you. Rebecca, wow, we're going to have to go through from left to right here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tall guy.
Adam, I believe was his name. That was Terry's son, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And then there's Matthias. There's me. We're showing off. I guess we just got some kind of award, or we got medals, right? Yeah.
For something to sew on our hats, maybe.
Yeah. We got those. We pinned those, and then at some point you could get medals too. Not really sure what was up with this program's mix of like military medals and pirate ships, but we didn't create the curriculum. The tall person in the middle here is my older sister Bethany. She was 5 years older than me. She was more of a like leader in the group at this point. Then this is Matthias's oldest sister, Rebecca.
That's my older sister.
Is
very short and still is today.
Well, there's a significant difference in age between Rebecca and Bethany. And then this is
true.
People from back in the day, Tabitha and Stacy. So yeah, there we are, circa 1990, I think. Got to be 1991.
Does it say on the little thing on the? That's great.
Well, no, not. Well, oh, you mean like on the info? I don't think so.
Nah, some of those old camera or those old photos had like a date stamp. Some of the ones I sent you have the dates. It was like 1990 or whatever.
Yeah.
This is probably around 91, 92, to be honest with you.
Wait, didn't your mom your mom was the leader of Patch the Pirate, right? Didn't she teach Patch the Pirate?
For a while, maybe. Yeah, I mean, she had the most kids in it. It just made sense. Yeah. There's 3 of us at any given
right?
time.
You guys were like half the class, yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised. I guess Rachel's a little too young, so it must have been like when you were like 5 or so, because Rachel would have been this.
That's a long time ago.
The moral of this story is that these guys, none of these people in this picture, they're not going to get a good score in longevity. They're just not old enough. You know, it reminds me, speaking of growing up things, that idea reminds me of when I had my first job out of college, when I was doing consulting for pharmaceutical companies, and I started looking for other jobs. I guess like my boss made me mad or something. I don't remember. And a lot of the jobs that I felt like I was qualified for, they all required like 5 to 7 years experience. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm just literally not old enough for this job. That's it. I just haven't circled the sun enough times to be qualified for this job. So I think it's good to understand what it goes into. And it's also good to understand that sometimes the parameters are not necessarily, entirely how awesome you've been at paying your bills. Like, that's a part of it.
True.
Right? I mean, you miss a payment here or there, whatever, you're a little late. That's not a big deal. You might get dinged a little bit. but it's just the consistency, because one of the most interesting things, if you're talking about usage rate, and by the way, that's for all accounts open, right? So
Correct.
if you have multiple credit cards, your liability is how much you could max out if you maxed out every single one of those cards. And then, so you want to use 30% or less, but at the same time, if you don't use the cards at all, that can also hurt you. So you got to be in that range. When I was younger, probably about a little bit, a little bit older than these guys here. I'm jumping a little bit, but just to make a point, this is me and Matthias at his pinning on ceremony.
Commissioning is what it's called.
It's commissioning.
See, it has a little.
Well, yeah, and we always remember. Sorry, I'm pulling up too many things. Apparently, my computer got confused, but we all remember your commissioning date because it's 888s.
Yes.
Yeah. But this day here, when I was about this age, probably a little bit older, I thought, hey, you know what's a smart thing to do? There's Matthias's mom and his dad. Mom, dad. I guess the guy running the ceremony.
Yeah, he was one of the instructors, the cadre from the ROTC detachment.
Okay. So, I mean, I have to admit that I did something kind of silly. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was doing something silly. Like, I had moved on from my first credit card that my dad got me when I went to school, when I went off to Carolina. It had like a $2,000 limit. I wasn't going to get in that much trouble, but as we've both talked about, that credit card in college, when you can charge some things to it, not leave a balance, is huge.
Yeah, it's a way to start racking up points on in terms of that oldest account without having. I mean, if you obviously stay on top of it, it's just that much longer you've had a history of paying your debts on time. So what did you do? Did you close your first account, Jordan?
I did close my first account. Now, in my slight defense, BB&T was a local bank and doesn't even exist anymore. But I thought I was being smart. I actually closed 2 different ones around 2009, 2010 when I was going back to school. I had better credit cards. I had built my credit. I had gotten better things. And I was like, I don't want to deal with these. I don't want to have them hanging around. I thought it was the smart thing to do to lower my liability. But in fact, it hurt me a little bit. I mean, it didn't hurt me badly, but it did. It was not. Now I'm hurting. I could have longevity all the way back to 2003, but my oldest credit card is 2007 now. So I cut off a few years of experience.
Mine was, I just looked mine up, and my oldest one is 20 years old. So that would be 2004, somewhere in that year that I got my first one. I did the same thing. My mom co-signed on it or something. It's an old Bank of America account. But to that point is I don't use that card or swipe it anymore, carry it or anything like that. It sits in the drawer in the kitchen in one of our financial drawers, and I just take it out once every 2-3 years, swipe it, immediately pay it off, just to keep that account active. Whenever they start emailing me saying they're getting ready to cancel it, I just go swipe it, use it to keep that account active, because it's my oldest account and I don't want to get hit at all if I can help it. And we'll talk about it later, but especially when some of the loans that I'm applying for. But
right.
So right. I actually looked it up, and you still have every old account that you close stays on your account, stays in your report for 10 years. So it could take 10 years for it to hit you when you close an account. Just kind of some information for you.
So I think I mean, at this point, I'm past it. But I mean, guys, don't get me wrong. My credit score is actually really, really good. But it was just a silly not knowing the rules of the game, as it were, right?
Another interesting tidbit for people is that a lot of times, so we talked about that credit usage, that credit utilization ratio, which is, I don't know why that phrase is so hard to say, but that's the third time I messed it up. I don't know why you keep saying radio. I don't. Yeah. But basically, you can actually call your credit card institution and ask them to up your limit, or even do it through the app a lot of times, and they'll just do it, and they'll up your. And what that does is that decreases your utilization ratio so that it looked like now you're using less of the credit that you could be using. And that's a quick way to get a few points on your credit score. They may not always do it, and I wouldn't recommend doing it often. But if
Yeah.
you've been paying on time for a few years on a credit card, like, hey, my limit is 15,000, and maybe I'd like to go to 20,000. I wouldn't recommend you use it all, but just the act of them bumping up your limit will increase your score.
Well, and yeah, that's the other kind of interesting double bind sort of thing of this, right? Is that they're going to up it if you've been doing a good job because you're worthy or you're credit worthy and you're trustworthy. But
Sure.
at the same time, they're kind of hoping if they give you that much, you're going to spend it.
That you're going to use it
'Cause,
and start paying them
yeah, then
interest,
that's
or keep
and
paying
then
them
yeah,
interest.
exactly, and not pay it off immediately. Now, an interesting wrinkle in that though is the charge card, right? Like, I have an Amex Gold. I think you do too.
Have
That
a
one doesn't
platinum,
have
yeah.
a limit. Oh yeah, you got a
Correct.
platinum. Ooh, look at them. Look at that. Sorry. uh, so I don't even know how that. Honestly, I don't even know how does that play into it.
So they have a profile on you, and they just don't necessarily tell you what it is, as I understand it. So I've swiped it for a portion of buying a car before, and I wasn't sure how much they would let me swipe. So I literally just texted, like, got on the Amex app and said, "Hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
about to swipe it at a car dealership," and they were basically like, "Yeah, okay, go ahead. Why are you talking to us?" But I was like, I didn't know that until until you said that. Um, so it's kind of they build a profile on you that they're always updating. I'm sure according to your history, and I've had that card for years and years. So it's I'm sure I could probably swipe a ridiculous amount of money on it before they would start asking questions. My wife would ask questions way sooner than they would. Let me put it that way.
I actually, gosh, this has just been a tales of caution from Jordan today. But again, it didn't turn. It turned out okay because I have been so good for so long. But I got an Amex Gold back when I was working, and then I guess I let it lapse when I went back to grad school because come on, I was in grad school. I was making $17,000 a year as a
Sure.
as a, as on a fellowship, so I wasn't exactly needing to throw around the Amex Gold. But that's more of a like a you don't have to cancel that because you have to pay for it. So I wonder how that's an interesting kind of wrinkle in this as well.
So if
I don't really know.
you talk about like one that you pay, like
Yeah,
that's just something to take into account when you open. Like I would always recommend, especially for like if you're doing what our parents did with us, my kids going to school or starting their first job or whatever, and I want to get them a credit card, I'm going to get them a free one because I don't want them
sure,
to have
yeah,
to
yeah, absolutely.
carry a fee, and that's the one he should keep open basically his entire life, right? I
Yeah.
say he because I have sons, but so that would be something to consider, right? Because there's some credit cards that have fees, some that don't have fees, so that's definitely something to consider when you're. And that is what I'll do. As soon as I can, I think you can probably do it at 17, 16 or 17 maybe. I'll have to look into it in terms of when I'll get my kids credit cards, just so they can start swiping and
Yeah,
building that credit history, just like
right.
we
And
talked about.
to be clear, it has to be in their name. It can't be one on your account. That doesn't
Correct. It
count.
has to be in their name.
Yeah,
They may be 18
yeah.
before they have to do it. I don't know for sure, but that is something that I will do. I will be on the account, and I will have lots of thoughts and opinions, but uh, it'll be in their name.
Yeah, and again, I mean, if you go into it because one of the things that we want, this is all about financial planning, sound financial decisions, and one of them is it's kind of like investing. In this one, it's start early,
Yeah.
get in the game early, right? Just you don't have to spend a lot, just spend some and pay it off. Just get a record. You need to get a track record. Anything that you can put on the card that you're going to have the money to pay off, do it, right? Like if you could pay it straight up with your checking, or you can put it on your credit and then move the money over, do that. Unless, there's
This
some
might be an
advantage to paying
interesting.
it straight.
This might be a good point to bring up the credit versus debit card debate that
Mm,
we've had before,
yeah.
and I've seen play out with people. For instance, my dad, he loves to swipe his debit card. Uh, that there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but to me, it makes me cringe because I think when you swipe your debit card, that's money that comes directly out of your checking account with your bank. When you swipe a credit card, it's money that the credit card company sends, and then later on you pay it off with your money. That means that if something happens, something's compromised in that swipe, somebody steals your card, somebody swipes it, or somebody has a magnetic reader, or whatever those things are. Now they're taking credit card companies' money. They're not taking your money. But if that happens with a debit card, it's a lot harder to get that back, and they got to put a freeze on your actual checking account, which means I hope you have a credit card because you're not going to be swiping for a minute while it gets sorted out. So that's something just strictly in terms of security. I don't swipe it. I've never swiped. It might have been 10 years since I swiped a debit card or more. I only swipe credit cards. That comes with the caveat that I don't ever carry a balance on my credit cards past the end of the month. Every single credit card I have on all the businesses and personally is all paid off at each statement. Every statement balance is paid off by the next cycle, so I don't ever pay any interest charges or anything. So really, it's just me, whenever I open a new credit card, I do it for like points and bonuses and stuff, but I never even pay attention to the interest rates because I know they're never going to apply. But not everybody can operate
none
like
of them
that,
are going to be
operate
is
like
going to
that.
be good either.
Yeah, no,
right.
it's like 25% or something right now too. It's horrible. I can't imagine.
I mean, that. Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing here is that they want you to sign up for these cards because they entice you with the bonuses and the points, or you can accrue points and stuff. And I mean, it's an incentive for you to use their card. But if you're doing that when you're just paying for things you would have bought either way, and then you're just moving money over, you're participating in the game in a smart way. It's just not that I'm not trying to imply that this is like a racket or a game. I'm just saying games have rules. Credit has rules. Play by the rules. Good things will happen.
100%.
Yeah, and definitely the security aspect.
It's worth being said too that I, for instance, back to our younger selves, we may not have had the discipline to swipe everything we were going to pay for with the credit card and stop there. So that's not necessarily a strategy for an 18-year-old fresh with a card. Is hey, I'm going to put everything on a credit card and never pay cash or check or anything, because they might not have the discipline to stop swiping it when they see something that they want,
something shiny. Yeah,
I'm a grown man with children, so I can't afford that.
Well, every once in a while, a pair of shoes must be bought. But speaking of shiny things, do you think when you purchased this model Dodge Viper for me, did you swipe a credit card? Or, I mean, did this guy have a credit card?
No. Well, he probably was about to sign a contract that was pretty lucrative, but remember that
we're
Dodge
about
Viper,
the same
cool.
age here. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that. We're about the same. This is separate incidents, all right, obviously, but I couldn't find. We were actually on the same little league team, the Astros, but I could not find a picture of the two of us. Just the one year I was on it by myself. So
were we on the Yankees together too, or did you go to a different?
I was on the Pirates when you were on the Orioles, right? This was the next league up for you, right? The Orioles.
Okay, and then the last one I was in was the Yankees, I thought, but that could have been. I don't remember.
I think it's been a long time. Oh my gosh, it's gonna be that's
because you were always.
I don't know after.
1 year older than me, and so it was 2 years to a league, so we were on the same team for 1 minute, and then you'd go up to the next one, and I'd stay there for my second year.
I would always hope that my team would draft you. That's right, guys. In this little league, the Brentwood Little League, they didn't mess around. 8-year-olds to 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds got drafted. You went out there and you handled some fly balls, you handled some grounders, you took a play to turn at the bat. And you got drafted.
And often it was my bunting skills that they were drafting.
I don't remember the name of the team. Like I played for Sosby with Chris and for Brad, and I don't. That was one of my last years, and I don't remember what the team was.
I think that was the one we were on. I don't either.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, the case in point being that those were before our years of being able to build credit. The thing is, as we've said, even if you're young and dumb like these guys, even if you are this stupid, you can start building credit. You
saying I don't look like a banker there with that striped shirt?
That's my shirt. Remember, you didn't ever own.
Oh, that's right.
Button-ups?
That is your shirt.
Yeah. I love that lime green shirt, man. I wore the bejeebies out of that thing. Obviously, Scott did not get the memo that we were wearing.
No, he was unaware of our dressing. That's
so
great.
Point being, though, both of us by this point had credit cards.
Oh
Paying
man,
off
look at
some.
that. I'm starting to do the
Look
goatee
how
there
young
too.
Matthias is. Yeah, Matthias is so young in this picture. Don't worry, there's another one of us looking dumb from this time. Hold on. Same trip, I believe. I just like to show
Oh,
this one. Matthias is wearing a Carolina hat, which is hilarious, with his
that's
Kansas
true. We
shirt.
didn't. Yes, I had to soften the blow. I look
Yeah,
serious.
do you still have your Carolina hat? I still have the Kansas one.
Yeah, it's in the
It's
closet.
really dirty, but
It's in the closet.
yeah, same
Yeah,
thing. It's just so dirty. Yeah,
it's showing the age, the 20 years
yeah.
age.
Okay, well, so let's start talking about. Let's transition here, and don't worry, we'll go back down memory lane more in the near future of the episode. But let's talk about what some material like realities, aspects, things that happen based on your credit score, right?
Yeah, so you talked earlier. It's like investing in your credit score is like an investment, and pull up that mortgage calculator. It kind of shows
Yeah.
that the higher your credit score, it does have a monetary impact on your mortgage. So let's say we were looking at
So
here. Can you
yeah,
zoom
so
in
let
just a
me
little
just.
bit
Oh,
on there?
sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna get in there. So we just kind of, we're just picking numbers
Perfect.
out of a hat for the most part here. A basic down payment, right?
Yep, home
You're
price
gonna have to pay some
300,000.
private. You're gonna have to pay some PMI because you're not at 20%. We can get into that later if they don't. But and then I'm just letting this algorithm that's just essentially just a calculator of that's a synthesizer of all the different places that would offer you one. Kind of just speculating what you could get based on your credit score.
Yep.
Here's now I hope no one out there is like this, but here's an interesting thing. If I go down low enough, the interest rate disappears. They're just like, you're
Meaning you're
not
not going to
gonna
qualify.
get it. Yeah, you're just not gonna qualify.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
which I guess
That's
600 has got you down into the fair
you're in the
range.
fair.
So and
Yeah,
I
the
think you
bottom end of the
start
fair
at
range.
600. I think you actually start at 600. If I remember correctly.
That
But all right, so
sounds.
let's say, all right, so go back up to the mids. Let's talk about the mid 600s. You're
So
looking at an
650,
8%. Yeah, 650.
and your mortgage
Now
payment
this
is
is
25-23 a month.
now this is for North Carolina, so of course there's going to be variations of all sorts. This is just a general kind of
Yeah, but we're comparing
experiment.
apples to apples. Now in North
Yeah,
Carolina, let's
exactly.
say I had a 750 score, same house, same inputs, just a 750 score. What's my payment going to be?
Look how
Almost
much your interest
almost
rate
200.
drops. Almost your interest rate drops
Yeah,
by a percentage point. So look,
just about.
This is a 30-year fixed. So sure, you're like, oh, that's only $200 a month, but that's
$200 a
$200
month
a
is a
month for the
lot.
next 30 years. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's see.
So
Let's go if you get all the way up. I mean, let's do this one. Okay, it comes down a little bit more. Look at your interest rate; it drops below 7,
below 7, yeah.
which is pretty good these days. I mean that I was. It's a good thing because I recently was actually just noodling around with mortgage payments myself, mortgage rates to see what I could get right now, and most of them, I forget which one of those platforms I was on, Rocket Mortgage or one of those that'll do this for you.
Sure.
When I put my actual credit score in, I got below 7. I was kind of shocked based on how things are, but
yeah, and they're really fluctuating right now too. So from 1 week to the next, they could be significantly different in terms of 0.2% interest to the layman. That it's fluctuating that much today. It dropped a bunch today. So for everybody who bought a house like today or got a quote today, congratulations.
yeah. So I mean, it's the same thing, right? Obviously, this whole thing, well, not obviously, but this whole thing applies to car loans as well, right?
100%. Any loan, really.
Same thing. Yeah, any loan, right? All right. So speaking of that, let's talk about the possibilities that sticking with a good credit plan and a good credit score can raise for you.
Yeah. So for one, just like you said, they'll give you access to a home loan if you get above a certain bar, and if you're below it, you're simply SOL. You're not getting a house without bringing more money. Perhaps you could talk a bank in by bringing more money, but lower leverage on a deal is more loan per the house is always going to save you money or allow you to buy sooner. Let's put it that way. Than it would the other way, and start building. This guy's a
Do
genius.
you think they would give these two guys a loan?
Based on their ability to do gang signs that mean nothing.
Yeah,
Probably
that mean
not.
nothing. Yeah. Yeah, no. Sadly, guys, I am a senior research analyst at a consulting firm in this picture, and he is a second lieutenant in the Air Force going through flight school. So
Yeah.
I guess what you say we learn slowly. I don't know. Look here, maybe here's a more respectable version of us on that same trip, but these are the
Oh, there
same
we
people.
go.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the plane you learned on, right? In San Antonio?
Nope. That's an old trainer that
Oh,
they used to have. That's that one right there. That's a
okay.
T-38. They do still train on that different level of flight school. They do fighter maneuvers and stuff on that one.
Okay. All right, well, go ahead. Sorry to
Yeah,
get
no,
you off track there.
Basically the the key takeaways I would say, which we'll talk about later and we'll put up in the show notes. But basically, the sooner you get started, the better your score is going to be, and the more intentional and smarter you are with your usage throughout your lifetime and as an adult, the better your score is going to be, and that's just going to open so many more opportunities. I mean, this is a real estate investing podcast, so the loans that I have access to, and actually it's pretty funny because most of the loans are in my name. So when we first started buying houses back in oh no not oh 2016 2015 timeframe, we bought in my name as an Air Force officer with a long career by that time. So Jen's credit score was always higher than mine because because I had all the credit inquiries on my name. So that's just a case in point. Is eventually we started alternating so that we wouldn't each take hits, and we have different credit usage. So if you compared our credit scores now, she has a bunch of stuff on her name that I don't have, and I have a bunch of stuff in my name that she doesn't have, even though we're obviously co-owners of everything that we do. So just an interesting side note, but it gave us access to that type of loan because we had good credit. Jen was, I'm pretty sure they got I think her parents did this exact same thing with her when she was in college. Her mom just gave her a credit card or signed up for a credit card in her name and said, hey, use this sparingly, but use it, and start building that credit. And now here we are both with pretty much the best credit you could have at, we're not even 40 yet. So the best credit I could have is a 38-year-old. Let me put it that way. So,
yeah, well, and I think I'd like to make a point here about, we're talking about all the things that allow you to do, and sure, loans and living it will help you build in all these different ways that we're going to get to. But as far as just like living life in a better way, I guess I don't know if better is the right word, but for me it was just less stressful, I guess. Like when I was in grad school, I had started in college paying loans. Paying credit cards off. I had paid off a school loan real quick. I had paid off my car while I was working after college. And so when I went back, after Carolina, when I was working, so when I went back to school to get my PhD, I had credit, right? That and cards and knew what I was doing. And I had all these people around me who didn't really know how to do it. And now, granted, I was willing to take out a few loans because I didn't have any from undergrad and some of them weren't. So that's a caveat, but they didn't know how to play the game, as it were. Right. And so they're like, I've only got $12 left in my bank account. I can't, it's peanut butter and jelly, or I can't do anything. And I'm like, why are you relying on, you're in a position where you've reinvested in your education, in yourself. That doesn't mean you have to like live like you're 19. You're 24. Like, and for me at 25, 26, I had credit, so I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't like spending egads of money or anything, but life was just easier for me because I could just pay on a cycle. And I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't buy food until payday, that kind of stuff. And that was just, I wasn't making tons of money. Obviously, I was making the same money they were. I just knew how to use it better.
yeah, that's an experience thing, and that's frankly that's what the banks and lenders are looking at when they look at your credit scores, and why the age factors in so big. Is like, this guy's paid for that much longer. He's that much more experienced at living life and balancing his finances in order to pay his obligations. That's pretty much it. So yeah, I mean, the earlier you can start learning that and understanding what it is that you're doing and why they look at it that way, and let that guide your decision making when it comes to spending and swiping cards and maybe upping your credit limits or not upping your credit limits, whatever it may be. Like, as long as you're doing it intentionally, it'll benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, and I mean the flip side of that, I do want to just point this out because it is kind of crazy, but you got to keep doing it, right? You can't just do it for a while, even for a long time, and then stop. Because if there's a big gap or something, it's going to hurt you, or there's just no record. They want to see the record. So I'll give you an example. My dad, an incredibly financially responsible person. We lived on very little means for a long time because he was, sacrificing to be a minister. But at some point, when he got a little older, I don't know, probably in his 50s, we were comfortable by that point. Everything was fine. He just decided he wasn't going to pay for anything with a credit card. Just everything was going to be paid with cash. And even though you could get like a loan at 0% for a car and pay it off, he's like, nope, I'm going to write him a check. And he just stopped participating in basically the system. And so when he went to get a loan for his most recent house, he like literally didn't have any credit. Even though he's like has no bills, has no debt, has paid everything for 50 years, has money in the bank, has all of that. He just, he was dropped off the radar. Now, luckily for him, he knew he'd been around in town so long that like the bankers knew him and it didn't matter. But if he'd have been somewhere else, it'd have been a weird situation.
Just moving to a new area. Yeah. I mean,
exactly. So you got to stay on the map. Anywho, so yeah, you got to stay on the map. Speaking of the good life during what was grad school for me, we got this picture from Matthias's rehearsal dinner. Obviously, I've said something incredibly hilarious, as I am wont to do.
As you're sitting on my lap, clearly.
Yeah, that too. Jen does not seem to be bothered by the lap sitting.
No, she's not. She's still
okay. Yeah,
she's still having a good time.
Yeah, that's actually from I was in grad school at that point. I guess it was 2011 that you guys got married? 2012. So I was in the process of moving from LSU to Georgia. Yeah. So there's that's a 28-year-old me, I guess, and a 27-year-old you. Or when did you get married? 27, 26? Wait, you're 86?
Yeah. I had just turned 27.
27, yeah. All right, so let's talk 26. About. Yeah, I was about to say, I was not going to question you on your own birthday, but I'm like, 86 to 2012. That's, yeah.
Hey, I got my wedding date right. My birthday, I could afford to miss that one.
All right, so let's talk about right here at the end, let's wrap up by talking about the kind of things that, well, I didn't mean to put this one up, but.
There we go. So my mom's condo, our townhouse.
Yeah, believe it or not, these two people already building credit history, even with this hair and this puka shell necklace.
Oof, that's classic.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, this is around the time if you pay attention to Matthias's LinkedIn that he was going to be running a sandwich shop.
Yeah, would have been from that house. That's where I went to work.
Yeah. I was at Carolina. That's 05. I remember that because we started our national championship run while I was visiting you.
Yep.
I had just moved to Carolina. Yeah. Well, anyways, let's talk about, now that I've distracted myself by accidentally putting that up, let's talk about the kinds of loans that, credit has allowed you to do. And maybe, tell us a story about what that led to.
Yeah. So, for an investment property, a residential investment property. So basically, either a single family house or up to a quadplex. Anything 4 units or less is considered residential property, not commercial property. You're effectively getting, which is how we started our real estate investing business. We bought houses, and the best credit, we did conventional. They're not going to give you super high leverage, just because you don't have a track record. You don't have, they know it's not your primary residence, so they know that you're obviously going to prioritize paying off your mortgage where you live first. So they don't give you as good a rates, and they don't give you as much you can't pull as much loan to value or loan per the house. So you're pretty much limited to conventional. But that we were allowed to buy houses, 2 to 3 houses in that second year. We had rates. If it was had it been our primary, would probably would have gotten a 3.5 to 4%, and we ended up buying at 4 to 4.5%, which is a lot easier to make that cash flow in terms of an investment versus a 6, 7, 8% what people are paying now. So and back in the day, poor credit would have they probably wouldn't even have let us bought it. But what that does is I have a record of paying off those loans as well. So when we started talking commercial properties, basically there's two types of commercial loans. There's recourse and non-recourse. Recourse means they will go after you and your personal assets for in the event you default on that loan to make up the balance they'll take the property and they'll go after you personally. A non-recourse is when the bank will take the property back and you're good. They do a lot more underwriting of the property on a recourse. I'm sorry, on a non-recourse loan than they do on a recourse, because they want to know what you have in the bank, what your assets are that they could go after to cover themselves in the event that I horribly mismanage something. Those Once you start getting into that, they care a lot about your credit history and your debt history, your loan performance, as it were. So that's it's all kind of stepping stones to building into where I could qualify for multi-million dollar loans, commercial loans, based on my one, my investment history, but two, my credit history and I have a $3.5 million loan right now. So that is performing and allows me to. I have just signed with some partners, or I will sign with some partners on another loan that I only have access to because of the performing asset that I have in that loan that I already have. So it's a lot of building up, gives you access to the next step, gives you access to the next step. So starting as early as possible in this journey is really how you get to the upper levels of success, in my experience, and I'm pretty sure in everybody's experience.
And as you had mentioned earlier, how much it matters quite a bit that these things have been in your name, right? Like, how much does the paperwork matter versus like what
yeah. Well, I mean, it's my name's on everything, literally everything. So they go, that my social, frankly, goes by your social, and it's tied to everything.
Yeah.
So whenever they pull credit, and now honestly, my personal credit is becoming less important as I go after these bigger properties and bigger loans. My track record in the investment world is much more important to them. My ability to operate an investment, but I got there because of starting earlier on the personal credit. Yeah.
Right. Now, are we to understand? I mean, intuitively, one would think, okay, well, once you've proven yourself, then you can go to the non-recourse loan. Is that in fact the way that works, or?
Honestly, it's a size thing. The bigger the loan, the higher the loan balance is going to be, the more likely they're going to work towards a recourse, because they just don't want to get in the business of going after people. It's expensive to go after people and it takes forever. So the bigger let's say it's a $10 million loan on a $15 million property, they're going to underwrite the property and make sure that there's no way they're going to let it get beneath whatever I owe on the loan, the value of the property. So they monitor the property a lot more. They make me hold a lot more reserves in the property. They don't necessarily care. So a lot of high balance loans, the sponsor, the borrower, and the guarantor of the loan, myself, in most of these instances, I have to have a net worth equal to, or take on partners that to combine, we have a net worth equal to the balance of the loan. So that's a limiting factor in what they do. They're not going after you for it, but they want to know that you have the ability to manage assets equal to that amount. That's kind of what they're verifying with that, or that you have partners you bring on net worth partners who have shown that they can manage that level of net worth, and they make those guys sign too. So basically, it's the bank is going, hey, look, we have this asset here. This guy has a track record of managing it. He has a net worth equal to the balance of this loan. So he's shown in his life that he can manage this level of asset, or he has partnered with enough people who have shown that they have that level, and you move on from there.
Yeah, and so it sounds like one of the main things is in the course, if something went wrong, they're fairly confident that they can seize the property and make their money back from just the property.
That's their goal, and they hedge that bet as many ways as they feel is necessary to, there's always a business plan involved, and they understand that I'm buying it with the intention of raising the value, not lowering the value towards towards their debt, but they just hedge all their bets basically.
Right. All right. Well, seems like that's a pretty good place to wrap it up. I hate that I ruined this was supposed to be my finale, and I accidentally put it up earlier. Because that's probably the longest that the lettuce ever got. Should have never gotten that long, let's be honest. But
that was really
this is
long.
why when
you wore a hat a lot.
Yeah. The really funny thing is, right around this time, a little bit, I think maybe the next year, I think Bethany got married, and I went and got a haircut. But then I look at the pictures of that, and it's still like below my ears. I'm like, I even told her one time when I saw it, I was like, I thought I got a haircut. She's like, yeah, you did. I was like, it wasn't enough, but yeah.
I'm sure she agreed.
Yeah, I was shocked that she let me even be in the pictures, honestly. She was being real nice about it. But anywho, oh man, it's been fun to go down memory lane.
Yeah, for sure.
And see some things, and just, remember being, I don't know what we're doing there, but we're putting pillows on our head.
Pillowcases? Pillows?
Yep. That was pillows. I don't know. We were packing up you guys to move back to Kansas City. I don't know what we were doing.
Oh, that could have been it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks you guys for hanging out with us and learning about some credit and learning about us a little bit and seeing all the ways in which we embarrassed ourselves when we didn't know we were embarrassing ourselves as young people. Hope you guys had fun with that, and we will be back with you next week. This was Get Invested with Jordan and Matthias. Peace.